Hello and welcome to a new series of the Xpert 11 Road to Glory series. This is now season 40, the big 4-0, but in terms of the overall series itself, this is the 12th season of doing this, and what a long way this team has come. Right now you are seeing the team as it was at the end of season 29. This is what the squad looked like back then. We're about to see what the squad looks like now. After many seasons of building the team, building them up from young players, this is what the team looks like now. This is the team we've been building all along. This right here is what we will try and get into the ultimately top flight. We're just one rung below the top flight in order to do it, and hopefully challenge for honours. This is where the real test starts. We are now in our first season of our peak. We have 5 seasons to try and achieve our goal, and if we do not do that, then the team is effectively over and we will have to try and rebuild the whole thing. Now, if you look carefully at the squad, you may look and see there are a few differences to the team that you may not recognise from the end of the last episode, so I should say we probably should go over them. First of all, Ledley King has retired, so he is no longer part of the team. Ledley King was a mainstay of the defence for so long since we signed him back in season 34, but Father Time caught up on him, and now he has had to make way for Devin Reilly to become a regular starter in the team. Oliver Wan is also missing. After his double jump, I decided to sell him on, so he is now no longer part of the team and will continue his career at another club. Replacing him, I have 2 new players, including a new young midfielder to replace the retiring Y Junior. The reason that being will be is because that Azrat Zairi, I feel, is now old enough to finally become a regular starter in the team. So let's take a look at the 2 new players. First up, 17-year-old 4-skilled midfielder Lennart Tingstrom. He's a 74, so he's a pretty good skill path, although beyond that there's nothing too special about him. I should probably mention that from this point onwards I'll be looking to bring in youths for cash generation to help fund the old team's form training, because we're going to need a lot more money than we've had so far to get by from now on, because the opponents are that much harder. We're going to need to scout them a lot more thoroughly, and even then that might not be enough. We will need very high win bonuses. So Division 1 is going to be a very expensive business indeed. Replacing Oliver Wan is the wonderfully named Bapit Kanchanapoom. We'll probably just call him Bapit for short, but that is a very mouthful of a long name. Crucially, however, he is pretty much a similar deal to Oliver Wan last season, although this time he has the hard shots SQ instead of the header SQ. Hopefully he can produce a similar fee of over 1 million econ that Oliver Wan left off, maybe even top that. Bapit Kanchanapoom is now on a new number 5, which was the shirt number that Ledley King wore before his retirement. Right, that is the squad changes out of the way. Everyone else retains the same squad number that they wore last season. So without further ado, let's look at the teams that we're playing this season. Obviously there are 7 other teams in this division, and they all have some pretty good managers. There's some real quality in this division, including former top flight sides, former Ultimate League champions, and potential future Ultimate League top flight sides. First up is Cairo Nightboats, who were in the Ultimate League top flight just 2 seasons ago, back in season 38. They've been relegated and then almost got relegated again, but stayed up on the final day. They've usually been in Division 1A, but because of the way things have turned out, they have been moved over to Division 1B to help it make up the numbers of a shortage of teams that would normally be in Division 1B. This is their squad. It doesn't look that too much different from what we've been seeing in Division 2 so far, really. In some cases it might actually be weaker. They've got a fair amount of 14-bar players of Makanachi, McDavid, McChellery, Dougal and Rad Baxter are the main threats on that side. Eric Perry is a pretty decent goalkeeper. Their star defender is Kieran Gombe, but apart from that they've got a lot of developing players. This conveyor belt side isn't really that strong. That said, they did manage to get promoted with this weakened side, so they're not to be underestimated by any means. Albeit they have the assistance of 16-bar players which are no longer at the club, having been sold last season. FK Svaj Cernica. I'm hoping they're pronouncing that name right. You may have seen their players pop up in the Cup X11s from time to time, so you know they're going to have some pretty good players in there. They did reach the Cup final not so long ago and have made it back to Division 1 at the first attempt, having been relegated, and they did so as champions. they are not going to be a particularly easy opponent by any means whatsoever. And we'll have a look at their squad so I can show you exactly what I mean. As you can see, there are a fair amount of quality players, including Topazovic, Agosto, Blusac and Milovic, with also Stepanovic and Tanjevic in there as well. So there's a lot of real quality in the side. The only real downside is on a tiny bit on the old side here. They've effectively nearing the end of their peak here. Rocky Froberg there is retiring. They've got loads and loads of players around 29 to 34 years of age. So they really are sort of getting towards the end of their lifespan. So hopefully we can try and capitalise on their ageing with our slightly younger team. But they will not be pushovers by any means. So we need to be very careful against them. Highlanders Athletic. Now this is a team I'm potentially wary of. Not because they look ever so strong, but they are a very similar team to us, although they have a lot of arguably better players and more well-rounded similar ages. They have a very good manager was once number 7 in the world, and at Division 1 level they will be probably expected to be one of the tougher opponents in the division. And that's saying something considering the quality of opponents you can find in this league. They might not be overall favourites considering that they have a lot of 14 and 15 bar players and nothing much more beyond that. But look at that. All of their players in the outfield positions at least are of age 27 with a 26-year-old in there for good measure. They are very thin on the ground, but then again so are we, so that's not really too much of an advantage that we'd have over them. And possibly the biggest weakness they have is their 37-year-old goalkeeper, who is a bit at odds with the rest of the side given that the rest of the side is peaking at a time when he's sort of on the way out. But we will have to see how that one goes out. Highlanders Athletic will probably be tested more than they have in previous seasons. And the Romanian managers in the game do have a reputation for building extremely strong teams almost on a regular basis, like some sort of conveyor belt factory, one after another popping out all the time. So now that we've actually come across this for the first time, we're going to have to be standing up to that and learning how to play against strong sides like that on a regular basis. Speaking of strong sides, the club with the biggest pedigree so far, and as I was saying, you may have seen during the Team of the Weeks in previous Cup seasons that some of these club names might be looking familiar to you because they have often been among the strongest sides. This is another. Chiosia's Killers, managed by Freddie Sophia, are former Ultimate League Cup winners and were in the Ultimate League top flight only a few seasons ago. He has a very, very strong squad, as you'll see in a moment, and I would not back against him being in the mix for promotion straight back to the Ultimate League top flight after a few seasons in Division 1. Dave Rees is their big main assets at 18 bars skill with 34 years of age, although their backup Castello isn't too bad either. Their defence is excellent. Haluk Buzzkurt, Gennaro Pasotto, Muslim Kurlik Baktir. I'm probably really bad at saying these, but Brigwell Gasso completes what is a very ominous defensive lineup. Their midfield is not too bad either. Torgny Bjorkwold, Cinema Rui Costa, Kurt Flynn and Rodrigo Cordero make up the bulk of their midfield. Up front, they'll probably be relying on Armin Just and Alex Levents. Freddie Sevilla is a very, very good manager and he will be a very tough opponent to beat this season. Next up, another former Ultimate League champion in Shark United. They were in the Ultimate League top flight as recently as last season. And in fact, you may actually remember we played them in the Cup last season. This was the team that knocked us out. So we now have to place them in league play. And not too long after they knocked us out, so they're not going to be too different from the team that did manage to beat us. So it's not going to be like a Taunton Town situation whereby we overcame the strength deficit that we once had to beat them twice. We actually have to go and do the business against Shark United in the league now. They have the same squad that they did last season. The main difference being that Claudio Costa now is an 18 bar striker. Andy Halliday didn't go up in the end, but he's still a pretty good 24-14. Alvaro Nascimento and Alan Holyfield provide the main strength in midfield at 17 bars, with Mark Wheatman as a potential backup and Evans Cambrangi retiring. But there's a lot of talent coming through like Ricky Hoogland, Heriberto Nascimento and Morgan Spedding. Meanwhile, Rick Carter is emerging as the fourth defender in that Shark United side. Elias Hancock doubling to an extremely promising 17-6 defender. Shark United will probably be considered big favourites to gain promotion based on the squad strength they have. That said, with that squad, they should have really been stayed up in the Ultimate League rather than going straight back down again. So it may expose a weakness that we could potentially exploit. But then again, weaknesses at this level are going to be very hard to come by. So with all these strong teams, a former Ultimate League Cup winner, a former Ultimate League champion, a former Ultimate League top flight side, a Romanian superpowered team, a Croatian superpowered team. Surely there can't be any more quality teams in this division, right? Wrong. Here is two-time Ultimate League champions Steppenwolf Suckers. They were Ultimate League champions back in seasons 33 and 35 while we were starting our climb up the ladder, and they're still in and around the top flight. Obviously you might imagine that some of the key players from the Ultimate League title triumphs have got away. However, they have bought new players to replace some of them and kept up a solid strength, maintaining their Division 1 status. After the change report, they had 3 skilled midfielders in Christian Eriksen, Konstantino Marmora and Yancy Demjen. However, they have addressed this by buying in a 4th midfielder, Emil Ovas, who provides some extra strength. That said, Eriksen and Marmora are the main threats in their midfield. Up front, Fania Siriaku is a clear threat. He needs to be really looked after if we're trying to get anything against him. In defence, they are a 38-year-old in goal and Max Dungastown, and their defence isn't exactly great-wise skilled because they have Timo Slonov and Art Muse as the only skilled defenders in there. They'll probably be better off going with a 3-5-2 throughout the season, and I imagine that'll probably be their preferred formation given their defensive frailties. But this is opponents that in the state they are, we should be able to compete with and hopefully beat. Now it's time to take a look at the final opponent in this division. And considering what you've seen so far, you wouldn't possibly think there was any more quality coming, but there is, a lot. Our final opponent is another Romanian side, the All-Stars, a 146 million econ team. That said, they were worth even more. They were probably one of the most valuable teams in the entire Ultimate League at one point, until they started to sell off some of their valuable players. What they are left with though is still a very strong squad in its own right. Even if it maybe doesn't have the depth it once had, it is still a very solid squad that's in their prime and will be a real threat for promotion to the Ultimate League top flight. If you look at their squad, Stefan Geist, 29-16 goalkeeper, that's absolutely excellent. Alexandra Cunner is their best defender in 29-16. Another 29-year-old Cassie O'Brien. You see a lot of 29-year-olds around this squad here, but a maturing, very promising defender in Miroslav Sam to make up that back three there. Basil Helmsford, Wilbur Brooms, Saki Reshkajuti and Alvin Winch made up the bulk of their midfield. Although with only 4 midfielders, that's not too much different from ours. That said, all 4 of them are stronger than the 4 we are carrying. Up front, Gudmundur Ragnarsson is their only skilled striker, so hopefully we'll be able to compete against these guys, but they have some real quality and a real quality manager who's actually played in a top flight before, although not in the Ultimate League top flights. He was actually playing with a different side in the Dream League top flight before. So that is the 8 teams that are going to be in Division 1B of the Ultimate League this season. I should probably make mention of the fact that we have just one division between us and the Ultimate League top flight. Just one division above us are Arcanta, FC Diana Signori, Gloria Spartas, Grand Rapids FC, House of Stark, Lusitanian Warriors, Real Peeps and Sud Dinamo Bucuresti. This information might be important to know because the relegated sides will be coming down to this level next season, so we're going to have to deal with some relegated Ultimate League sides. Therefore, you can see that this is going to be our hardest challenge yet if we were to get into the Ultimate League top flight, but it's the final step that we need to take. First of all though, I'm not entirely sure that the team is ready for a shot at the Ultimate League top flight, especially with the quality in this level, so our aim will be to stay in this division primarily, and we'll take it from there. Hopefully we can achieve our goal of safety, and then maybe push on the following season and reach the Ultimate League top flight. But whatever happens from here, we've already got a long way, but you would probably say that our goal isn't really achieved yet until we either reach the Ultimate League top flight and maybe even then actually win the title. We've come so far, all the way from Division 7, now we're in Division 1, there's just one more step to go. Can we do it? Is the project a failure if we don't go up? Well, I'd say we've done pretty well so far, but I think at this stage, at the age the team is now,